Yeah.
I forgot to.
So we're going to do spring migration with the bird chat team, and we're hoping that we'll be able to do the Panhandle birding with Robert Gundy next week, because there was just some technical issues that was under nobody's fault. So we're going to get that hopefully going next week. All right, so spring migration in Central Florida, and yeah, Robert was telling us he's in Costa Rica, so he's seeing the chestnut-sided warblers there now. So we're hoping soon they'll leave and they're going to come and make a little stop in our neck of the woods, hopefully. All right, so I guess Susan,
Do you want me to do the introduction?
yeah,
Or?
do this part, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so full spring migration is March 1st through June 15th. That's what they consider full migration. Obviously, there's some other times that are, a little bit more active. So we can go to the next slide.
And I'll do these, Susan. I'll do these.
Okay. All right.
So the point is that they're coming from the tropics, going north to the eastern forest. They're migrating at night. It's dangerous. Next slide. And quite a few warbler species and other songbirds winter in the Caribbean. And next slide, those have a shorter route just to hop from the Caribbean islands to Florida and then work their way up the coast. But the others are in Central and Northern South America. And what is their route going to be? It's got to be either across the Gulf, those are trans-Gulf migrants, or they go up through Central America and Mexico, which means they're crossing an enormous desert. So either case, those are more difficult. And as this pertains to us in Florida, we're going to see more, next slide, on the west coast of Florida in spring, because they get blown over by storms, and they may end up in particular at Fort DeSoto, which is the westernmost point along the coast there. This is something I heard from older birders a long time ago, that fall migration is best on the East Coast because they're coming down the Appalachians, and spring migration is best on the Gulf Coast. So this tries to explain it. Okay, I'll turn it back to you.
All right, so as you have probably heard through a lot of publicity that's been out, 3 billion birds have been lost since 1970. And part of it, it's not the whole issue, is the greater dangers that these migrating birds have faced. It's always been difficult, but it's gotten worse. So we have loss of habitat. There's more buildings, more lights. The lights get them confused. Climate change. So if they normally would arrive at a certain time and the plants would be having their young leaves and there'd be a lot of caterpillars and stuff around. If it's happening sooner, they might arrive too late to get the food that they need. So the high migration times are mid-April through mid-May. Florida, we're on the earlier end of that. So mid-May would be more up in the north. But what can you do? There are things we can do. Lights out, and we're going to have a talk from Duval Audubon about lights out, and that's actually the theme of International Migratory Bird Day, is lights out for the birds. Plants for birds. Check out our March 17th Orange Audubon program featuring Deborah and about plants for birds, and that's something you can be doing right now. I've made multiple trips to the native plant nursery, and friends, we share cuttings with each other. So you don't even have to necessarily buy them. Encourage bird-friendly policies in your community, and encourage the purchase of parks, because the more green space we have, the more places for these birds to find shelter and food and what they need. And so we're going to have a whole program about the lights out, but there's some major problems, including buildings, communication towers, wind turbines, which we don't have in Florida, and power lines, and some, with residences too. Actually,
Quite a
if you're-
bit actually with residents, if that's something that we personally can do something
Yes.
about. Some of them we can't do anything about, but our
But look at
homes
the
and apartments,
numbers.
we can, so.
253 million, so we can
Yeah.
do something about our residences. So that, pay attention to that May 12th, but you know, in the meantime, migration is going to happen. So at night, if you have outdoor lighting, make sure it's facing down or it's on a, you know, on a timer or on a sensor. Because if it's shining up, that's what's going to distract the birds. And how do you find out about spring migration? You can go into eBird in the past and you can look to see if there's a certain species you want to see if it has showed up here in the past. You can use eBird. BirdCast, which is a weather radar. That's actually the birds show up on the radar, and you can Google that and you can find it. And it eliminates detection of okay.
Well, actually, that's something that's possibly could be happening and may affect BirdCast as they're starting to, because they use the weather radar. And some of the newer weather radars set so that it will no longer detect migratory birds, bats, and butterflies, but that's not necessarily good for us. So that's just a consideration that we may have to look at in the future.
But I'm sure if you go to the BirdCast website, it'll probably talk about that because
Yeah.
that's been discussed. So this shows on eBird. So if you've never played around on the eBird website, now your eBird mobile does not have this feature. But if you go on the website, you can click on bar charts for certain region or a hotspot. So tonight we're going to talk about Meade Gardens in Fort DeSoto. So you can go to Meade Gardens, for example, and you can select bar charts and you can see, you know, when are the birds most frequent, you know, and you see a bird like common yellowthroat, it's pretty common throughout the whole year. But like American redstart, you see it really peaks around April and May, and then again in the fall. So it kind of gives you a clue like, oh, I want to see a black-throated blue. Well, April, May looks good. And then again in the fall. Same with yellow warbler, not quite as much in the spring and more in the fall, but you know, it's possible. And I know that I've seen one already and some people have seen them. So they're not as frequent this time of year, but they're around. So use those bar charts. And actually, eBird does have a free 1 hour online class you can take that goes through a lot of this stuff. So here is a BirdCast alert. And that was for last week, right? Today's the 31st. So you can click on that and it'll give you a forecast and it'll do a 3-night forecast. So last week it was kind of low. And, you know, we have some weather coming in, so I'm not a meteorologist, but it'd definitely be worth checking to see if this is going to maybe improve our chances of seeing some migration. Okay, so now we're going to review 2 places. And we've have separate bird chats on these places. We've kind of changed them up a little bit to focus on migration. And so we do have separate YouTube videos on these as well. So I'll talk about Meade Botanical Gardens and Susan will talk about Fort DeSoto. And remember, we're having weekly walks starting this Saturday, the first 4 Saturdays in April at Meade Botanical Gardens for spring.
Actually, I think is it the first 4? It's just not the last Saturday.
The last Saturday is a fat family thing. So yeah, it's the first 4. I think there's 5 Saturdays this time. So it's Meade Botanical Garden is a migration hotspot. It's 48 acres owned by the city of Winter Park, and it's on 1300 South Denning Drive. And why is it a migratory hotspot? And this shows a whole bunch of birders looking at a spectacular warbler that's shown up. Songbirds, as Deborah said, pass through Central Florida en route to the forests of the Appalachians, the Northeast US and Canada, after they've been in the Caribbean or Central or South America. And this is a place in the middle of a lot of development where there's trees, bushes, you know, fruiting plants. There's a creek, so there's water. There's a pond, so there's water there. And there's also pines, you know, and there's the oak hammocks. So there's a variety of habitats. So it's a really good place to go look for migrants. People ask me, like, what's your favorite place to go birding? Well, I tell them it depends on the time of year, because in the wintertime, I don't go to Mead Gardens too much. It's a nice place just to go visit, but you're not going to see, the winter birds. I go other places, but in the spring and fall, I go to Mead Gardens usually multiple times during the week, because you just never know what's going to show up there. So there's 198 bird species documented at Mead on eBird, 35 species of warblers, which this time of year is when they are probably in their colorful breeding plumage. Not necessarily, but many of them will be, like this beautiful black-throated blue warbler, which we're waiting for it to show up. So here's a map. And it's good to get familiar with it, because if you follow eBird, and people may put locations for certain warblers that are showing up, and if you don't know the park, you might be a little confused. So here's the parking lot. Well, this is the hardtop parking lot, and there's restrooms right there. Am I looking at it backwards? Okay. So yeah, okay, that's the entrance there. So you have, there's a community garden up on this side. There's something called the pit, which is down in this area. And that's where sometimes it kind of goes down to, it's kind of a wet area. And sometimes the warblers will hang out there. Sometimes this is the creek, Howell Creek, and they love that area. And they'll be around in the trees in there. Some of the flycatchers will hang out there. The pines are up here. They're doing, the Florida Native Plant Society is doing a restoration up here. And sometimes we get stuff that shows up there. So this whole area can be really, really interesting. And there are barred owls there. If you get lucky, you may see or hear one. And there are definitely pileated woodpeckers in there as well. So every migration, usually there's something that's a big surprise. And last year in the spring, it was the blue-winged warblers. And it seemed like they showed up in several different places. Like we were at Fort DeSoto and we got one over there. And then a couple of them showed up at Meade, and they were, a lot of people got to see them. So they were really, really cool. So who knows, maybe we'll get them again this year. Okay, the mulberry tree. There's one large mulberry tree, and it's over here. There's a discovery barn. It's like a place where they do summer camp, and the pit's down here. So it's a big mulberry tree, and right now it's full of fruit. And it's always good. You go to Mead, you want to just take your time and just stand and watch the mulberry tree, because you're going to get good chance. You'll get Baltimore Orioles in there right now, the cedar waxwings. Yellow-billed cuckoo likes to hang out there. I don't think any's been seen yet, but hopefully soon. And sometimes we've gotten Philadelphia vireo came in there. We've had, we had a warbler in there last year, I think. Which one was that? I can't remember. Susan, you remember? But it's a great place.
Yeah, we had all kinds of different ones. I think we haven't had any kind of too much migrants, but we've had prairies in there and all the current ones that we have, but we had a lot of it in that same area. We had a lot of Cape Mays and the black-throated greens last year in that area.
Not necessarily in that tree, but there's some oak trees nearby.
Kind of bounce back and forth.
The warblers love the oak trees, because if you watch Deborah's program, the oaks support so many different caterpillars, and they're feeding on a lot of those. So it's just a good area just to be watching. You want to watch for flocks of birds. That's your clue. If you see a lot of activity, you want to just really take your time and look to see what's in there. So then we have the native plant garden on the way to the mulberry tree. So you'll see there's a lot of flowers blooming right now. And the great crested does like to hang out in some of the taller trees there. They have just come in, but we did see an eastern phoebe. So we still have both our flycatchers. They kind of change. There's a changing of the guard. So the phoebes mostly have left, and the great crested are coming in, and they're going to be breeding in our area. So it's a good time to see those. And these are some of the trees that we were talking about. There's a big oak tree here, and there's some smaller trees. So definitely just really look through, take your time, and see what shows up. And then in the pit, which is down from the mulberry tree, there's a pond, and we often get the mallards, the mallard mixes. There's wood ducks. The raptors like to hang out there. Catbirds and thrashers and painted buntings sometimes, indigo buntings sometimes. So it's just good to take a really good look through there. And of course, the herons and the egrets will be around there as well. And this was the Philadelphia vireo. I think it was the last year, the year before, we had 2 of them.
Mm-hmm.
They were just hanging with one of the flocks. So maybe
And we did see the kestrel fly in and sit on the snag at the top of the mulberry today.
Oh, okay.
So
So still there. They haven't left yet. Okay.
No.
All right. And here's just some more pictures from that area. Good place to look for the American redstart, the black-throated blue. We haven't had a whole lot of goldfinches this year, and I think the ones that have been here are probably moving on, but we did hear one the other day. And this is one of the trees. You can see that's the little barn thingy where they do classes. So that's one of the trees right there that you want to look at. Okay, then there's the butterfly garden and bird feeders. So these are some non-native plants with native plants. You will see a lot of butterflies there if you enjoy that. The feeders sometimes have painted buntings. Painted buntings will be leaving in another month or so. So you still possibly could see buntings. Great place for the ruby-throated hummingbirds. There's several plants there that they like, but we've seen them by the mulberry tree too, that they like to perch way up high on that. Just so cool to see. And black and white warblers often frequent those oak trees, feeding on the insects on the branches, the trunk. Okay, then there's a boardwalk. And so on the boardwalk, it depends on the season. There's always a lot of Carolina wrens there. There's often thrushes because they like to be in the leaf litter. So and the hermit thrush probably still here, but we'll have other thrushes coming through, like the Swainson's thrush and the gray cheek thrush. They haven't arrived yet. And right now there are some ovenbirds. You might get lucky. You might hear one chattering, learn the call, and then you might see it. And yeah, it's really pretty back there.
I think they've been seeing one of the barred owls frequently down there if you go early in the morning.
Yeah, early is best there. That's when we saw the oriole too. So definitely you can get in there like at 7:30. And yeah, I'd recommend early is definitely best. Okay, the sapsuckers are still here. They'll be leaving soon. Check out the trees. You'll see these holes that they drill so that they can feed on the sap that comes up. And really what they're after are the insects that get trapped in the saps. So the parking lot, the east end, Creekside, behind the office, near the ear tree where the barred owls have nested, and on the way to Warbler's Corner. And so, yeah, there's still a few sapsuckers around, but they won't be here much longer. Okay, there's a picnic area and then the bike path. And of course, when you're walking out there, always be alert on the bike path because we have bicyclists that sometimes go kind of fast through there. There is a gopher tortoise burrow, or there's a few of them out there. And these pines can sometimes be good for like yellow-throated warbler, pine warbler. Prairies sometimes go up high there. And actually last year, sometimes the tanagers will go up there. Both scarlet and summer tanagers will go up there. So that's another good place to check out. We sometimes see raptors up in the trees there. Then the picnic area itself, when we have really good days, we don't get out of the parking lot because there's a lot of trees right there in the parking lot. And actually, we were there a couple of days ago. That's where our best flock was, right by the parking lot in the picnic area where the tables are. So you just never know where things are going to show up. Be sure you look for the swallowtail kites. After about 8:30, you're going to see them start to fly around. And I mean, if you've never seen one up close, this is like the best opportunity to do so. And then, oh, look, there was a wood stork one day, and we have, like Cooper's hawks, stuff like that. Also, it's another place the Baltimore Oriole hangs out, though frequently we've been more seeing it behind the bathrooms, near the mulberry and some of those other trees. And a good place to see the northern parulas. They're all over. You'll hear them. You'll hear their call and see they're feeding on these tasty caterpillars. Picnic area is another place where indigo buntings can be found. And when they come, maybe Cape May warblers. And this is also the greenhouse where the more formal garden is. Few years ago, that's where the scarlet tanager, we had a beautiful male hanging out there. And that kind of shows you the pit, the path goes down. So it's good to walk down there because you never know. And we had, a few years ago, we had a juvenile summer tanager. So it was both yellow and red. It was really, really handsome. And Alice's Pond, good place to see the wood ducks. Raptors like to hang out there sometimes. This little bridge, it goes to the island. Sometimes birds will be hanging out on these like cypress trees and things like that. Garden house area, that's like behind the building. This is where we've had Cape May warbler last year. We had black Burnian warblers last year. Beautiful orange with the black streaks, just amazing. Hooded warblers, they tend to be lower. So, you want to look where there's vegetation, it's lower. The island, one year they got lucky and they had, I believe this was a whippoorwill, not a Chuckle's-Will widow, but correct me if I'm wrong. And he was just sleeping there. They've had prothonotary warblers on the island. It could be wet there. You want to wear your boots. And a lot of thrushes enjoy the island. This is the concrete bridge to the island. And magnolia warbler has shown up there. And here's a black and white eating a tasty bug. So this can get, if it's been raining a lot, this will get really muddy in there. And then the creek. So we had another nightjar and the black-throated green. And we had water thrush and ovenbird. And was that the Tennessee over there on the left?
I think so.
I think that was, we had, those came in the fall this year. We seem to have a few Tennessee warblers in the fall.
And I think we currently would have a Louisiana there.
Yeah.
They keep saying, I missed it today, of course, everybody else saw it.
Yeah.
And the painted buntings.
All right. So, Delcy said she saw a juvenile adult painted bunting today. Oh, and there's a native plant sale on April 24th there. Thank you for telling us that. Okay, so I'm going to turn over to Susan. So now we're going to go to Fort DeSoto Park.
All right. So one of the other migrant hotspots when we have migration is Fort DeSoto Park. So it's like about a 2-hour drive from Orlando, depending on traffic. It's a very inexpensive parking fee. I personally think they should raise it because it's getting kind of busy on the weekends. But it is a Pinellas County park, not a state park or a national park, but it's got some beautiful beaches and different areas where the migrants come over, like Deborah was mentioning, and they kind of land there. So we can go to the next one. So it's really like 5 islands connected by bridges. There's Mullet Key, Madeline Key, St. Jean Key, St. Christopher Key, and Button Fortune Key, which I probably would never know which one I'm on other than tell you what is there. Like it's campground area, it's East Beach, North Beach. So that's kind of some of the what you can kind of take a look at. It is very far west, so any birds coming across the Gulf will land there because it's like a good place, the first place to land, and they're tired crossing that Gulf. And next. So, and again, I think Deborah kind of showed this, how that's kind of right there as they're coming up and over. And they might just go right across like Yucatan to Cuba and over up to Fort DeSoto. So they have at Fort DeSoto 345 species of birds on eBird, but that's for all year. And there's like different areas. Once you go there, you'll kind of understand there's like East Beach with playground and mulberry tree. There's the different piers, the Arrowhead picnic area, park headquarters. There's a ranger house that kind of goes to a fountain and a beach. And North Beach, of course, there's a lot of beaches, and Egmont Key. So, and one of the places that's kind of missed often is there's a small boat ramp near the entrance, and it's a really good place to kind of pick up a few birds like oyster catchers there. If the red-breasted merganser, I think last year when we went there, we did get to see those. They were still there. And then East Beach in the morning is a really good place to pick up a lot of water birds, shorebirds, water birds. It's right on the end. You can see there's a lot of mix, like it's a small beach, but it gets a good mix of birds there. Like Wilson's, one of the ones we see there more pretty frequently are Wilson's and the semi-palmated plovers are kind of there. And these are photos by Paula. Next. And you can see this is kind of what it looks like. I think this is a picture from last year, and it's like there's this whole little mix of birds there. So it's kind of a nice, you'll see different ones, different plumages. Some starting to get their breeding plumage because of the migration. Oops. Okay, and typical ones would be ruddy turnstone, short-billed dowitchers. The picnic area, there's the edges of the picnic area were very brushy, so but like the hooded warblers really like that. The wood thrushes are kind of, you can see them, they kind of land, they're just coming over, they landed, they kind of like the woody areas there next to like the edges of the camp or the playground and picnic area. So some of the birds that have been seen there, scarlet tanager, bay-breasted warbler. Again, the veery, we've seen those there. Gray cheek thrushes when they come in. And you can just keep going because I think these are just bird. The campground, I enjoy camping, and if you stay there, sometimes you'll see a lot of different birds or just hear birds at night. So it's kind of nice. You can hear Chuck's wills at night or whippoorwills, depending what's in there. But it's a beautiful campground. You get to see the Nanday parakeets. It is, if you do that, you can actually be in the park as soon as it opens, and you actually can stay pretty much late. You know, normally you have that big drive, so you have to leave early. Delcy says if you can survive the mosquitoes, but I've never really had that much trouble with the mosquitoes. More if it rains. So that's kind of the worst. And then the parakeets are throughout that campground, and at night, a yellow-crowned night heron. A few times that we've camped there, they're always like drinking from the dog bowl. So it's kind of cute there. And there is a headquarters building, which is another place. There is a little bird area next to it, but actually just right off the parking lot is some of the best birding there. But some of the things that we've seen there in the past, but indigo buntings, there's usually a sandhill crane in that area, parakeets, a lot of the different warblers. So the Dog Beach area, again, with a lot of the sea oats across like the street from there, we've seen lots of birds in those sea oats. They do like to go in there and eat, not the sea oats, I'm sorry, but they like to eat the berries on the bushes in there.
Sea grapes.
Sea grapes, thank you, not sea oats. So a lot of the birds around the, believe it or not, a lot of them like the dog beach area because it's not quite as busy sometimes with people, and it's a little bit, they're a little bit narrower, has more seaweed. The birds are often a little bit closer than you might see like a North Beach. So you'll get to see a good selection of birds, including like black-bellied plovers and willets. Depending on which willets are in season. The reddish egrets are at the beach. Whimbrels are nice. There's a couple usually there. If you do go to the Bay Pier, there's a great egret, great blue heron hybrid. If you wanted to look at some different hybrids that are there. And then again, if you go out on that pier, you sometimes can see some of the seabirds that go by. Some people do take their scope out there. But you can see a lot of the ocean, the gulls and terns are flying right by the pier there. So as it's going out.
That was a repeat.
Whoops, that's a repeat. Sorry, we got some. So then Outback Key is a little bit off the North Beach area. So you kind of wade to it to get to it. And that's kind of where you're going to see a lot of the other birds. They like to tend to be out there when it's, just away from the people, although lately even that has been getting pretty busy. So if you're going to go, I would recommend weekday if you can, because of the crowds that get there. But some of the birds will just kind of go through them. There is an area that they block off for the nesting birds. So they will be starting to nest at this season in the spring. So, just paying attention. Obviously, dogs, there is a dog beach park. So we do try to encourage people to obey the rules. It doesn't always happen, but there is a section that's set off for these birds to have their nesting area in peace. So,
but this is a good point right here, that when people feed the gulls, it encourages them to be there, and the gulls will eat baby birds of the other shorebirds.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a good
and
thing.
they can get bothersome. Like there's a pair of ducks at Mead Gardens that can get kind of bothersome, sometimes chasing you too. So the reason they don't want feeding, natural predators are already abundant, so we don't need anything to bring more of them in. So, and I think this is Jack.
Mhm. Yeah.
Taking a picture. So some of the cool birds that they have there, snowy plovers, just a real nice bird to see. Kind of, you can, while you're there for spring migrants, because there's a lot of warblers. I think right now they are listing worm-eating, prothonotary, hooded, red starts, northern water thrush, and Kentuckies. But you can always see these other water birds too. So it's kind of nice if you pick a day and maybe the migrants aren't there, you just head to the beach because there's a lot of beach birds. It's very attractive. They even, I think, have a scissor-tail flycatcher right now.
Oh, they do.
It's
Yeah.
hanging out.
By the fort.
Yes, by the fort.
By the fort.
So piping plovers, and you may get pictures of them with banded, because a lot of them are banded. Delsey's wondering what time the park is open, and I believe it's at
7, I think.
7, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Even if
Because-
you're camping, you can't even ride your bike in at 7. You have to wait. They have it
Yeah,
all-
you do have to wait. You can stay pretty late. The park pretty much clears out pretty early. So if you're camping, you can stay later. Obviously you don't want to stay too late, but
Right. You
most
can
people
stay-
leave because they have to get going with traffic. So it does get kind of nice in the evening.
Yeah, actually, they let you stay on North Beach until the sun goes down. Then you
Yeah.
have to leave. But the sunset's amazing.
It is. So, and you can see all different turns, and they're really fun to watch them fishing offshore. It's really nice to see.
Saw that
And
one.
I think we got some reddish egrets, sanderlings flying. Marbled godwits are just really entertaining, getting those while they're fishing. you never know what you're going to see. I think one day I walked out and there were red nuts, avocets, of course, lots of laughing gulls always. So you never know what you're going to see at the beach. So it's always kind of fun and things are moving through. But one of the things, if you can encourage, if you do see too much, give birds a break. Some of these birds have just migrated many, many miles and they need a little break. So, if you have kids or grandkids, try not to let them chase the birds, just so that the birds get a chance to rest and get their food, kind of take, re-energize before they have to get going again and finish their migrations.
Okay, and I believe that's it. Yep.
Mhm.
So do we have any questions? And we apologize again that we had to switch programs, but we were having some technical issues with our guests. So we're going to try to reschedule that for next week. We'll be sending out the link and you'll see what it's going to be next week. But any
Mhm.
questions? Let's look at the chat.
And again, if you do go to Mead Gardens, they have a nice baby owl. If you kind of peek around Warbler's Corner area, there's, you may or may not see them. They're kind of hard sometimes, but the kites are pretty easy to see. They're flying around. I think we also found a nest for a gnatcatcher, blue-gray gnatcatcher by the parking lot. So if you see gnatcatchers and follow them, you might get to see a little nest. So
Yeah, that one's really hard to see.
yeah,
but
that one's hard
very
to see.
observant, you might see it because you see the adults and it's far enough away. Like I said, we normally don't share about nests because we don't want people harassing them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So any questions, comments, anything to add about migration that maybe we left out? You can unmute yourself at this time or type in the chat.
And again, actually with migration, even your backyard can be a really good spot. Like I was so surprised to see the black-throated green in my oak tree. I was like, whoa. But you never know what you'll see. So it's good to keep your eyes open. If you hear lots of birds, I heard a lot of prairies and prulas, like lots of them singing. So got to see a nice little flock. So if you hear anything, start looking because that works good doing that.
Yep, that's secret. Look for the feeding flock. All right, so Marcy said, oh yeah, Fort DeSoto, yeah, it's a great place. You have to research. I think they let non-county residents, I think it's 6 months ahead you can reserve.
And sometimes if it's not peak season, you can get in during the week. So for a day or two.
Like we reserved for this month in October. So this month you can reserve for October to catch some fall migration.
Yes. So thinking ahead, it's always good.
Yeah, it's a great park though.
Yeah, it is really nice.
Definitely worth a trip over there. And really one day is not enough because you can't get to all the hot spots in one day. Any questions or comments?
And just Judy was mentioning she did not know about Mead Gardens and she'll make their stop there soon. Again, try to time it during migration and check that eBird to see what people are saying. That's always a good thing.
And if anyone wants
a lot of areas
to put in the chat, if you have a local spot that you feel like is good for migration, you can type it in the chat. I know some of you from other areas that are close enough for us to get to that might get good migration. Lori, where was the place that you went last year? You can type it in the chat that you guys saw a lot of migration. Oh, Lori says Central Winds and Overlook Park. That's in Seminole County. That's a great place in Seminole County.
And I think wasn't Oak and Palm Hammock over in Merritt Island. Sometimes does pretty good. So that's a good area.
Yeah, that is a good area. Sometimes Lou Gardens. Of course, I think that's $5 to get in, right? Lou Gardens. But that's close to
it just went up, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. That's okay. Or you can get a membership and then it's like
Our membership.
$20 for the year. But that's always that can be good as well. Let's think where else. Lake Apopka Wildlife Drive, you want to, for migration, you want to really focus where the trees are. So that's at the front gate area. Also the Crazy U where the hairpin turn is, that can also have some warblers. And sometimes at the very end of the drive, there's some trees there that you definitely want to check out.
Yeah.
Yep, get the yellow
Yeah, they always
warbler.
get the yellow. And I think I saw a lot of yellows.
And that's where that's
lakeside
what I
in the
saw.
willows too.
That was
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. We saw
Yeah.
the yellow warbler at the U. So that's always a good place to look for
I
sure.
mean, at the entrance, it's the sugar berries where you look.
Mhm.
So you got to learn your trees.
Delcy, you can join in. It's fine. If you want to say something, that's fine. Probably forgetting something now, but where else? Let's see.
Deborah, since I joined late, did you mention about buscando pájaros?
No.
Oh, no, we forgot completely. That
The what?
Saturday, we forgot to mention that Saturday we had a
Oh,
Spanish-speaking trip at Orlando Wetlands Park. We had 25 people. We're all speaking Spanish.
mhm.
And we saw a lot of stuff. We saw American Bittern real well. And our guide was Gilberto Sanchez. And he said he really enjoyed doing it in Spanish, which is his native tongue.
Oh, that's nice. And he's a really good hummingbird photographer. If you've ever seen his pictures, he's traveled like a lot of places to get hummingbird photos.
Mhm.
We have good attendance too.
Yeah, it was
We
good.
did.
Yep. You hope to do that again. Lori mentions Dimitri Park and Maitland
Mhm.
City Park are also good places to look for migrants. Yeah, thank you, Lori.
Yeah.
Lori's really good and in tune on like where to show up to find the migrants.
Hmm.
You have to kind of look at the weather and the winds and all that stuff.
Yeah.
For
And I
sure.
think we always talked about checking out that new park where we had the June challenge to
Oh,
it, because they had all those nice oaks and it's
Oh,
got a lake.
Tucker Ranch. That's
Tucker Ranch.
Avalon
Yeah.
Road in Winter Garden and Highway 50.
So we don't know what that's like yet, because they
Haven't
kind of
been
just
there.
opened it, last June? So,
Now Alan is on. I don't know if Alan's seen anything there yet, but
oh, Alan has been going there, huh?
so I don't know, Alan, if you've seen anything there, but there's a lot of, the habitat is right. So that
Mhm.
would definitely be worth checking out. And Joe Overstreet. Yeah. Yeah, where the trees are. And
Mhm.
also right by the boat ramp, I know last year in the fall, we had migrants right there where where the airboats are, but
Yeah, and there's a little picnic area there.
we had them there. So yeah, sometimes they don't need a whole lot of space, you
Mm-mm.
just find some little treasures. And actually Orlando Wetlands Park, if beginning where the building is and there's a lot of trees, that can be very good for warblers.
I kind of by the picnic pavilion, that little edge there. That's a great area too.
And just watch eBird. Also, if you do Facebook, Florida, is it now called Rarities and Migration or Migration and Rarities? It's in one of those orders.
Yeah.
People will post, rare things that they're seeing or migrants that have arrived. So that's a good place to also, kind of get some information and to go looking.
Mhm.
Always exciting time for us birders.
Yeah.
And we hope everyone can maybe join one of Larry's walks, but be sure you email him before to know who's going to show up. Or, Florida Rarities and Bird Migration. Thank you, Lori. Yeah. So yeah, try to join him. And Susan and I have our Birdathon April 9th, and we're going to be looking for migrants on that too.
Mhm.
So that would be good if you want to join in on that.
We're gonna look for everything.
Yes, we will. So
Yeah.
it's a fun time of year.
It is.
All right, well, we'll let everybody go. Thanks for being
Thank
here, everybody, and great job, guys.
Thanks, guys.
you, and hopefully we'll have
Happy birding.
on next week.
Yeah, yes.